Hello, everybody. This is Coach Aaron Saft on the Runningpains podcast. Today, I've got a few topics that I'm going to cover. Next week, I'm excited. I'm going to be recording with a friend, Tara Jordan. Tara is just a great soul, and she just ran the Cruel Jewel 100, where she was top 3 in the women. Just incredible, an awesome finish. I'm very proud of her. I've watched her grow as a runner. I've watched her kids grow as runners. I coach her daughter in middle school right now. I did a Healthy Kids running series, and they were a huge part of that. They have 3 kids, Tara and her husband, Jonathan. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation. And Tara has her own podcast, Finding Vert. You can find that on your favorite listening platform and give it a listen. She's had some great guests. I may be a little bit more touched because personally I know most of the guests. But she's a great interviewer, and really enjoying listening to her podcast. It is very new, but she's a great interviewer. So check that out. And like I said, next week we'll be talking with Tara about her experience at Cruel Jewel, as well as at Hellbender. She placed top 3 at Hellbender last year. So very cool. So excited for that conversation. Excited to bring that to you all next week. But for this week, as I said, it's got a number of topics and kind of some things that, as I was debating what to go over, I had a few things kind of pop up, and figured I'd just kind of expound on a few things that that either I've been listening to or reading, just to share with you, because it's great to constantly see what our community is doing, what it's putting out there. So I hope you're doing the same. And if you have something that's caught your eye, please share it with me. I love reading different articles and listening to different podcasts and hearing different perspectives, especially on our sport. It doesn't necessarily have to be on our sport, of course, but these will pertain in some regard to our sport. And the first topic, I listened to 2 books recently. I enjoy listening to audiobooks or podcasts on my run. I tend to be able to be a little bit more contemplative and attentive, and focus my energy not only while I'm running, obviously on my running, but I can kind of zone out, almost get into a flow state by listening to books. I kind of forget about the moment and just kind of get engulfed in the book or the podcast. And the 2 that I've listened to most recently, and I know I'm going to get some eye rolls and some groans when I say it, but again, I try to keep an open mind, and I'm going to talk about the difference in these 2 authors and myself. So, saying these 2 books, I'm quite the contrary to both of them, but I try to learn something from everything. And I took some things away from these 2 books. And the first that I listened to was David Goggins' Never Finished. I know, you love or hate him. There doesn't seem to be an in-between on David Goggins. I've got no personal opinion on David. I think he's done some amazing things. I was at Badwater with crewing and pacing a friend when David was there and racing. He dropped out that year. It was I don't know what was going on. I don't want to speculate, but yeah, I listened to his first book, and now listening to Never Finished. Some good takeaways, and some things that I did relate to. David's lived a hard life. I have not, so I could not relate in that regard. But some of the things that he does mentally is what I could attach myself to and relate to. Some of the strategies that he uses. That's what this book is about, is creating mental strategies to help you in your physical endeavors. Just making yourself mentally stronger, and kind of sticking to it, being consecutive, being consistent, That's the big point of running. Everybody is always looking for the silver bullet, but the true magic is in the training and being consistent in your training. That is truly the magic of running, is finding your consistency where you're comfortable or just slightly beyond your comfort level in training, and being consistent in training. So David Goggins' book, never finished. It was it was, like I said, some good stuff in there. The second book was Cameron Hanes and his book Endure. One of my runners had said that he listened to it, and he said he honestly wasn't too impressed. The Cameron, obviously, just like David, very much in the same camp. Very regimented, very always push, always thrive. Constantly hammer. It's hard when some of us listen to these books because we're not in that same mentality. And that's okay. Like I am not in the Cameron Hanes and David Goggins constantly hammer, constantly, striving to kind of find an edge or a threshold, which just is my limit. Like I'm not out there trying to find my limit. That's not the reason I run. That's theirs, and that's fine. Like I said. I'm okay with going out and going for a run or going to a race and just being there for the sheer enjoyment and experience of it. I think that gets lost on us sometimes. The actual just being a part of an event and enjoying the moment, enjoying the fact that you're there and taking in the event for what it is, the experience, and the miles. Yeah, of course there is a component where, we have to be able to kind of push through physical discomfort, physical challenges, mental challenges. That's all part of the sport, of course, but it's, if that's the sole thing that drives us, it's you need a little bit of both, I would say, because if you just have one, it's just not enough sometimes. It's being able to know that there's enjoyment in it. I think that's a huge part of our sport, and what can give you more success is truly enjoying the sport. So, they constantly, they're thinking about what athletes are doing. Are they training harder than them? Again, these are things I don't do. I don't follow people on Strava to see what they're doing and compare to what I'm doing. I use Strava to kind of stay in touch with other runners and say, hey, good job. Like, give them kudos. It's cool to see people out doing, tough things. I may, ask some questions of some athletes of, what they're up to, what they're doing, what was the point behind a certain workout, that kind of stuff. But it's, I'm not following them to gain, data on my competitors or anything like that, or see if they're training harder than me. And I don't follow professional athletes. I really don't have any interest in that, because they're doing things that I can't do anymore, nor do I care to do. So, it's fine if you do. It's nothing wrong with following the professional athletes and seeing what they do, but just remember, running is very individualistic, and we can't hold ourselves to the standard that a lot of the professionals do. We can't cover those miles and do the amount of weekly mileage and workouts that they do. If you're taking what they do and toning it down, workouts, volume, etc., that's good. But keep in mind, it's really based on you and what you can accomplish and how much you can do and how you're feeling. How are you responding to training? Again, like I had the conversation last week, I had to say to my coach, I'm just not responding to the training. I'm just getting too tired. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. I'm going to give you guys a training update, kind of where I'm at, what's been going on, and all that stuff. But maybe we'll just do that now. I had that as my fourth bullet point, but it's a transition we can make right now. So, I talked about last week I had an incident in this run I did on May 7th, but I didn't explain the incident. It's kind of embarrassing, but it happens. And, again, this podcast is about truth and finding our truth in training, being our best selves and finding our best selves in our training. So on May 7th, I did a 25-mile run. You can see it on Strava. It was just under 8,400 feet of gain. I started at the French Broad River, and I ran the shut-in trail all the way up, and I bagged a few extra peaks, those being Grassy Knob and Cold Knob, on my way up. There is a spur trail off of the elk pasture section, the section of the Mountains to Sea that's between 151 and the Pisgah parking lot. And it goes down into the valley. So I had never run that. And that's the section of Mountains to Sea that I maintain. So I kind of wanted to see, where it went, what it did. So I dropped down and down and down and down and down. And it was about a 3-mile descent. And I was like, wow, that was quite a drop. So obviously I had to go back up. So climbing back up, and at this run, I listened to the entirety of the David Goggins book. So David Goggins is, in my ear. So listening to that and climbing back up and, get back onto shut in and continue my climb into the Pisgah parking lot. And I was supposed to meet my family and go up Mount Pisgah with them, but they had already gone up and ahead of me. So I climbed up, and on my way up, I saw them, and they were coming back down. So I kind of felt a little bit rushed to kind of put in perspective where I was mentally, because they were already going back to the parking lot. And I was like, oh, man. So, I summited. There was nobody on the summit, and took a quick picture. And I was on my return trip down. And if you know Mount Pisgah here in Western North Carolina, it can be a pretty busy trail. A lot of people, it's very accessible. It's a beautiful view up top. And if it's a nice day, a lot of people do that hike. So I was coming back down and trying to avoid others and not get in their way or, interrupt their experience. But the trail coming down has a number of stone steps, and I caught a toe, and I went flying through the air over stone steps. And I'm coming down, and I know I'm going to hit some stone steps. And I came down, hands first. My hands hit, and in that split second, I said to myself, oh, thank God I didn't hit my face. A second later, I smashed my cheek into the rock, and shook me up. Yep, obviously. I had some cuts on my shins and my knees, and my hands hurt. I scraped my face. I got up, and, two people were right there, and they're like, are you okay? And I said, I think so. I just kind of sat there for a second trying to collect myself. They moved on, and I got up and kind of dusted myself off, checked myself, make sure nothing was extremely painful. Still had a lot of endorphins rushing through me since I had just fallen. But I got back up, dusted myself off, and continued my run, back down to the parking area. And when I finished and stopped, my hands started to throb. And my wife was worried that I had broken my thumb. My cheek was pretty sore too. So, we ended up at the urgent care getting some x-rays, and thankfully everything turned out negative. I was grateful for that, obviously, but what a way to end the run. I only had about a mile of the run left, and that was the result. But I finished the run. But it's just to say that, you never know. You take your mind off the trail for a second, and there you are, laying flat on your face, wondering what just happened. But to continue on, that was like I said, it was a good 25-mile run. 24 miles up into that point. I did, obviously jog it in, but being a 25-mile run, it was good. But it definitely left me pretty tired. I was pretty fatigued. That was the second week that I was up in the high 80s. I was just under 90 miles for those 2 weeks. Plus, we were doing some quality sessions, some workouts. So it just left me super fatigued that week. And that's when I had the conversation with my coach. I was like, dude, like I can't work out like this like if I'm doing this kind of volume, I can't do both. I can't do quality sessions and volume. It's just, I'm not recovering, and I'm just 45 years old. So, but we took some recovery time, just some easy running, day off as well. And on May 12th, he had planned out to do 2 20-mile runs that following weekend. So I kind of like the way he does it. If you listen to my podcast with Patrick Reagan about training camp weekends, we kind of talked about not doing back-to-back sessions because it just creates a lot more fatigue, but rather do a Friday, Sunday session with a recovery day in between. So that's what we did. I did 20 on Friday, had a recovery day on Saturday, just, some nice easy jogging. And then Sunday I got in 22. So I was very glad, I felt okay. I felt much better. Covering those 2. Did I have to do them? No, but, with the recovery time that week, like lowering the mileage for a little bit, I still got in the 70s that week, I believe. But got those in. And then the next big effort would have been the following weekend. So the 22-miler was on May 14th, and on May 21st, I did a 30-miler. That was this past weekend. And the 30-miler for those of you that know, I used to put on a 50K from my house, just kind of a get-together run, a fat-ass run, if you will. And we'd run out to Pink Beds and back. And it's roughly, about 50K. So I chose to do that route. It's not a ton of elevation gain, just some good up and down. I think there was just over 3,000 feet of gain on this one, if I'm remembering correctly. But anyway, just wanted to go nice and easy. And my goal was to stay between 10 and 11 minute pace. I ended up at 10:27 average mile, which is perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. I didn't want to feel like I had to, recover a ton from this run. So, the point was to come off it feeling okay. So that's why I tried to keep it nice and slow and easy. And it worked. The next day, I did a 6-mile run. I tried to keep my heart rate in like high zone 1, low zone 2, and I was running 10:30 pace. So, my legs felt great. I wasn't sore or tired. So it worked out well. But since then, I did the 6-mile run on Monday. I did a 12-mile run on Tuesday, and today I'm recording, it's Wednesday, I did a 15-mile run. And I've been doing some steady climbs just out and back. So steady climb and then, turn around and just get a good descent. And it's been interesting because, at the end of the runs recently, like my legs just feel like snappy, poppy, fresh, if you will. So like yesterday's 12-mile run, I was, down at 8:15 pace finishing up the run. Today I was a little bit, more tired. I woke up early. I don't think I got enough sleep last night. Woke up early to get some work done. So, but I was still, just above like 9:15 pace coming in. So, I think I was a little bit dehydrated today too, if I'm honest with myself. I only had 1 bottle on me. I forgot my, my water filter, which left me with a lot of the run without water, unfortunately. So I think I got a little bit dehydrated, because I kind of felt that when I got home. I'm okay now. Been rehydrating all day and back to it. I'm trying to run more in the midday. Temperatures here really haven't gotten too hot. We've been kind of staying, 70s, like low 70s as our high. So trying to get into, trying to run when it's the, hottest part of the day, just so I get some kind of hotter exposure rather than running in the cooler 50 or 60 degree temps that are, the typical morning temperatures. But because of that, I've been doing sauna training. I reintroduced sauna training. I've been doing sauna training for about 2 weeks now. I have access to a wet sauna, and the other part of this is that sauna training can leave you a little bit more fatigued. It is a lot of stress on the body, depending on how long you stay in there for. A wet sauna, you can't really stay in there for as long as you can a dry sauna, just because of the humidity. So, a 20-minute session for me is about the extent of what I can do. It's, it's tiring. The day before my 30 miler, I did a 20-minute session in the sauna. So I felt a little bit tired, and it's, I want to make sure that I'm not fatiguing myself too much. So I'm trying to be very careful. Obviously today, with being dehydrated, I was going to go to the sauna this afternoon, but decided against it just because, I think my body had enough stress today with the 15 miler and, the bit of dehydration that I felt. So yeah. I know Coop on his podcast talks about getting in there super often. I'm right now, I'm about every other day, and just trying not to overdo it, and overtax myself. I'm getting good exposure, but also listening to my body. Like today was supposed to be a session, but I just didn't feel it, so I'll go tomorrow. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the training. This week is a high volume week, obviously, with a 12-mile run yesterday and a 15-mile run today. Definitely, getting in some good miles today. I will not have a 30-mile long run this weekend. I'm hoping to get. I'll see what Patrick puts on there, but I'd like to get, just somewhere between 20 and 22 again this weekend. I think that would be a great long run. Body's doing really well on the uphills and downhills. I'm able to run, most uphills comfortably on my runs and kind of stay zone 2. So I'm in a good spot. I feel like training's coming along. I feel good, recovering well. It's my paces were slowing down, and that's kind of what indicated that, we were doing too much. So paces are coming back, which is nice to see. I feel really encouraged by that. So yeah, that's my training update. And then my next piece is I saw someone on Strava post a title that just used a negative connotation about the run, and just wanted to touch on what words we use to describe our training, and what words we use when we're talking about our training. Every time we use a negative word, it takes kind of a piece of us, right? It kind of diminishes us, especially mentally. We're kind of taking and diminishing our full mental capacity because we're not using this positive, encouraging vocabulary. So when you're thinking about your training, this kind of goes into trying to be more grateful and thankful for your opportunities. It's anytime my mind starts to go into a negative cycle, I start thinking about the fact that I have the opportunity to run Western States. Now, I know we don't all have the opportunity to run Western States, but whatever you're training for, that's something to be proud of, to be happy about, to look forward to. So, express gratefulness for that opportunity and let that be a positive, and let it, reflect or change your mental state. As soon as I start thinking about that, or about, the athletes that I've been raising funds for, and I'll talk about that here next. But those things just change my mindset so quickly. So again, make sure your why is strong, and make sure that when you reflect on your why, it has an impact on you. Or once again, like if it doesn't, then it's time to revisit it. Try to strengthen it, let it grow. Let it be more complex. It doesn't have to be complex, but my why is multifaceted, right? Like, one is I have the opportunity, obviously, to run Western States. There's 7,000 something people that tried to get into Western States. Like, that's incredible. Like, and I am one of 300 and whatever, 60 or 70 people that are going to be able to toe the line this year, which is just incredible. So being grateful for that opportunity is a piece of it. The other parts of it is just being able to show my kids, how do I deal with these tough situations? When I'm, really being tried, how do I react? I want them to see and observe and see how their father reacts to these situations. When he is challenged, how does he rise to the occasion? Is he positive? Is he negative? How does he interact? Like, these are all things that I believe will be influential in their life when they think back and think about, well, this is what my dad used to do. Like, this is how he reacted when he was faced with adversity. So, they can apply it to life lessons, and that's huge to me. Other aspects is obviously making it into the next phase of the Grand Slam, getting to the Vermont 100, towing the line at Vermont 100. Now, whatever happens at Western States, I will be at Vermont 100. As long as I'm capable of running, I will be at Vermont 100. After having raised the money for the Vermont Adaptive, I'm up to $3,455 for the Vermont Adaptive right now. I want to thank Zachary Dean, who just donated. He'd also donated to the Challenged Athlete Foundation, which I'm up to $4,134.68 for the Challenged Athlete Foundation for Leadville. So those are huge. It's not just the athletes that inspire me. It's the fact that people, friends, folks that maybe I haven't spoken to in a long time, they took the moment to donate to these causes and support not only these athletes but me. So it goes much deeper. My why is just grown and grown because it's just, I see the support and love that everybody has shown. It's incredible. I feel so good about it. I mean, right now, between the two foundations, we have raised $7,589.68. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. I'd love to do more. And if you can donate, the links are in the show notes. You can donate to either or both, and whatever you donate, it's more than enough. Don't think that a dollar doesn't matter. Whatever you can do, if you can, that's awesome. And I appreciate you, and the athletes appreciate you for donating. So if you have the capability, please, see the show notes, check out those links, and donate to one of those causes or both. Thank you again. So, back to what I was saying, use your vocabulary in such a manner that the connotation is leaving you with a positive, a positive imagery, a positive experience. Don't let it be negative and continue to be negative. It's just going to bring you down. It's when we can be positive and reframe things and make them positive, we grow, we get stronger. Our capability of dealing with negative events, we have less of them. We experience less negative events because we're able to stay in a more positive mindset or mind frame. So be careful with the words you choose and how you choose to describe or feel about your running. Continue to grow in a positive way, and your running will benefit from that. Absolutely. Okay. The next piece, I was reading through Mario Frioli's newsletter, and he cited. I'm going to put Mario's newsletter in the the show notes. It's a great newsletter if you don't subscribe. He does it weekly. Has some really good stuff in there, and really enjoy opening it each week and kind of finding something. But this week I found this article by Joe Uhan, and it's from I Run Far, and I'll put the article in the show notes. And he brought up some great points here, and I have a few takes that I'd like to spin off of, because I think there's some really good stuff here that we can all take away from. But the article from his Stay the Course column, it will say, is advice to my younger self: 5 lessons from a physiotherapist for a lifetime of sustainable running. So his first lesson, he says, form is first. The importance of running stride efficiency. So he goes on to talk about, we can be faster runners if we focus on our form. And he says he could have avoided a lot of aches and pains had he been more focused on form. So that where I would take that, it's not all about being faster on the trail. Yeah, that's great, obviously. But if we're focusing on form, the main takeaway that I would get from that is that we can prevent injury, right? Running is a repetitive behavior. We go left foot, right foot. We're kind of hopping, if you will, from one foot to the other. There's a lot of impact forces. And if we're doing that improperly, it ups our chances for injury. So we have to make sure that our form is correct. If our form is correct, it will diminish the chance of injury. So, thinking about form, yes, that is it's vital in order to keep us running, to keep us healthy. It's a piece of that pie of staying injury free. It's not the only thing. Obviously, there's a million things that go into staying injury free, but it is a huge component. So, it's great if you could have a form analysis. Seek someone that really knows what they're talking about, be it a physical therapist, a biomechanist, kinesthesiologist. There's so many people that know a lot about form and making sure that you're running, especially if you're having a repetitive injury. It would be great to seek help to know, is it coming or stemming from my form? And if so, what can I do about it? Is there a strength imbalance? Is there a mechanical issue? There's so many things that it could be, but finding this out will hopefully resolve that and break that cycle of being injured. So, and along with that, I will say, from my experience is, do the PT you're given, do the mobility you're given, not just until you're healthy, well after you're healthy. Like, for instance, my ankle, I've had, ankle problems since last fall. Thankfully, knock on wood, I have not had ankle issues of late. I've not rolled it on any of the runs that I've been doing. I've been wearing an ankle brace, very supportive ankle brace, as kind of just making sure that I don't turn it. But I've also been doing the exercises, even though I've not had any problems recently. My ankle has been strong, and thankfully I continue to do the exercises. But like I said, don't just do them until you're healthy. Keep doing them, like especially if it's a repetitive injury, or something that manifests itself over and over again. My right hip gets weak for whatever reason. Over time, it's a repetitive behavior, running. So when that right hip, maybe something's not firing, then I know I have to work on the hip. So I continue to do exercises so that doesn't happen anymore. It took me a long time to recognize that I need to continue to do those exercises. But I will stress that, continuing to do those is essential so that you stay healthy. Okay. His second point was push iron, the value of resistance training. Now here, he talks about just getting strong and it can be the foundation of running patterns. He talks about the hip hinge. There is a lot of things like the deadlift that can strengthen, and he says, it basically strengthens the main muscle movers, being the glutes, hip flexors, quadriceps, hamstrings, and calves. So it provides, a solid foundation for you to run on. It kind of, if you will, it helps when you have proper form to help maintain proper form. You are strong enough to have proper form. You're strong enough to run, which is great. But I will say that, sometimes people over-focus on strength training. We wanted to improve our running. That's the goal of strength training. Our primary focus is running. Weightlifting should be a secondary focus, right? We don't want it to hamper our running by any way. If we're lifting too often or too heavy, in which we're too fatigued, then it's going to make us have or make us compensate in our running, which obviously we don't want. That's kind of the opposite of what we want from lifting. So keep in mind when you're lifting that you're not getting too fatigued from what you're doing. Be careful with it. We don't want you too tired from lifting. So it can be maybe reducing the amount of times you lift in a week. It can be how many reps you're doing. It could be how heavy you're doing. It could be a combination of any of them. But be cognizant of that. It's also good to periodize your strength training, right? You shouldn't be doing like heavy lifting through your whole training cycle. I always start athletes, and mind you, I am not a strength coach. Let me say that up front. But I start athletes with building a core. We start with core exercises and building a core so that they can get to strengthening exercises and do some lifting and, some heavier lifting sessions like the deadlift and other exercises along that line, some Olympic lifting. And then as we get into the maximum volume phase, we kind of take a step back and maybe do more body weight movements, kind of like David Roche's speed legs or mountain legs, or now he has the ultra legs workout. So, these are all good resources, but there's a time and a place for like how you lift. And it's always good to make sure that you're lifting properly. That's huge too, because just as running form can create injury, so can lifting form. So, consult resources. If you have a good gym with some good instructors, make sure you got the lifting patterns down. Okay. But again, periodizing your training, periodizing your strength training. It shouldn't always be the same thing through the whole training cycle. Okay. Point number 3, there's only one bucket, the role of life stress. He goes on to say, we only have one bucket of function. We possess just one total physiological resource from which all of life is drawn, which must be refilled. Okay, so stress is stress. I've said it before. Many people have said it before. If we include work stress, family stress, the stress of running, all of these are in the same bucket. We don't have separate buckets for these. They're all in the same. So, rising cortisol affects us. We have to keep that in mind and adjust based on how high our stress is. If you've got a really stressful week with work, or a lot of family commitments, or a combination, and we have to reduce our training volume because that's just adding more stress into an already stressed environment. So be mindful of how much stress is in your life and adjust your training based on that. Have a conversation with your coach. If you know something's coming or you're in the midst of it and you're like, I just can't right now, if I get out for a 20-minute run, that might be all I can do. That may be all you need, instead of doing that hour run and adding more stress and making yourself more fatigued, getting out there and doing 20 minutes might be the best solution. So keep that in mind, and he also talks about sleep. And that's huge, obviously, in dealing with cortisol, is getting enough sleep, getting enough rest. Okay, We want to be at our optimal, and getting enough sleep is part of that. And the third piece of that is nutrition. Having a well-balanced diet, whatever that means to you, whatever patterns you follow in your eating habits, but making sure that you are staying on top of your nutrition, not just eating junk all the time. I'll share this with you. My wife, she she wants to make sure that I'm at my optimal for Western states, and we tried a number of things to kind of get the weight where we want it. She's, again, my wife is a physician. She is a family doctor, so she knows I'm optimal at a certain weight, and I am not there. So we've been trying different strategies to see if I can knock the weight off without having to go back to the low carb that I did for Bigfoot. And unfortunately, I have not been able to. I've been unsuccessful with, cutting sweets and doing all sorts of things. It's just, for whatever reason, my body just, it likes carbs. I like carbs. So, we've gone back, and this was her that said, you should go back on the low carb. It works well for you. So, I've gone back onto the low carb diet. And we're working on that, trying to just get some of the stuff off my midsection. So it's a conversation, that it's tricky, right? It's really tough to do, because most folks would look at me and be like, you're skinny, there's nothing wrong with you. Well, yeah, I mean, I am skinnier than most, but I'm not at my optimal. When I'm carrying around these extra pounds, it's just much tougher to get up and down the mountains and run my normal paces. I recognize that, but I sacrifice that in training just because I'm okay with where I was at, in the way I was training, but obviously I want to have my best shot at Western States, and that means that I should kind of lose some of this extra weight that's around my midsection. So I'm working on that. All right. Moving on. Let's see where we're at. All right. Number 4. We're on number 4 already. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. The importance of training and racing discipline for success and longevity. So here, he says, we have a finite number of opportunities to touch the edge. And I'm trying to remember, I was just listening to a podcast, and they went in depth about overtraining syndrome. And I'm going to I'll look it up, and I'll put that in the show notes if you're interested in it. It was a great interview. Overtraining syndrome. So I'll just make a note that I'll put that in there. They talk about the endocrine system, and how our hormones need to recover after big efforts. How much stress we put on the endocrine system. That's where we start to get to that overtraining syndrome. But if we're not taking the recovery and we're just adding too much onto the endocrine system, that's where overtraining syndrome comes in. So if we're racing too often, going to the well too often, working out too often, that's where this can come into play. And the guest, she goes in depth about how you feel, and what are warning signs, that you're heading in that direction, all that stuff. So again, I'll find that podcast and post it in there. But that's what he's talking about in this section, is not overdoing it, not only in your races, like how often you race and how much you're racing when you do race. It's also how much you're training. Are you overtraining? How is the body responding to training? So be cognizant of all that. Plan out your season. Talk to some good resources. Ask questions. Make sure you're not doing too much. All right. And then finally, let's see, where is number 5? Oh, the title for number 5 didn't print, so my apologies. But that said, he talks about like your relationship with running. Are you using running in a healthy manner? And what he means by that is, is it replacing another addiction? Is it becoming an addiction, something that, you can't live without? You have to have a healthy relationship with running. I know we're all grumpy when we can't run, but, if it gets to the point where you're obsessed that you're not running, then it's perhaps becoming an unhealthy habit. So be cognizant of what your relationship with running is. And, are you doing it for the right reasons? Are you enjoying it? That's a huge part of it, right? So, think about that as well. We oftentimes tie our identity to running. I'm a runner, right? And that's okay. Like I myself say I'm a runner, but that's not all I am, right? I'm a dad. I'm a coach. I'm a friend. I'm a husband. Like I might have so many other roles other than just being a runner. If we solely tie ourselves to our identity as being a runner, then yes, it's perhaps an unhealthy habit. So be cognizant of that. Try to understand that, you do have other roles in life, and those have obviously a huge importance, because we don't want to tie our self-worth to solely running and our performance. If something doesn't go right, it doesn't mean you're any less of a person or any worse of a person. Things happen, and we have to recognize that and move forward so that we can keep trying, seek other opportunities in order to better ourselves and those around us. So that was Joe Uhan's article. It was kind of one of those ones that just popped in my inbox, and I was just like, oh, this is kind of timely. So I'm glad that I was able to put that in. Lastly, coaching. Man, there's certain times where folks just seem to come out of the woodwork, and this is one of those times where I didn't anticipate having so many people wanting to come on board for June 1st, which is wonderful. But that also means that I'm kind of full at the moment. I don't mean to say kind of full. I am full at the moment. I am so grateful and honored to coach this many people. When I tell people how many people I coach, they're just taken aback. But again, this is what I do for a living. This is my 9 to 5. Right. And sometimes it's 4:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. Or later. I love coaching. I love, my role and being a part of others and their running. Oftentimes I said to my athletic director and my principal at the high school I coach at, oftentimes we're thanked as coaches, but, I thanked my athletes for allowing me to be a part of their running careers. I thanked my administration for them giving me this opportunity to coach these kids, because I grow as a person, not only as a coach, but I learn from everyone around me, be it the kids that I coach, the other coaches I coach with, just the situations, the admin. I ask them questions. I present them with things that happened and how should I deal with this. So it's really, coaching has really given me so much, and I'm grateful for that. I am grateful for all the athletes that I have and coach. I can't thank everybody enough for reaching out, for coaching. I appreciate that people, like my philosophy, and enjoy my coaching. And again, it's not for everybody, but I'm grateful for those that I have. So thank you to all of you that have reached out. I want to also say thank you to Mr. Early. Mr. Early just jumped on board, not only as an athlete to be coached, but at the Patreon level. So I want to thank you, sir, for coming on board, and not only as a Patreon supporter, but as an athlete. And so I will be full for a little while here. We'll kind of see as the summer goes on. If we have any spots open up, but with the Grand Slam upon us, I'm recording this, and I think we have 4 weeks to Western States. I really want to focus on the athletes that I do have, as well as on the Grand Slam events. So, I'm unfortunately going to have to say no at the moment, but that doesn't mean at a future time there won't be spots that open up. So, thank you once again. Again, thank you to Mr. Early. Thank you to all my Patreon supporters for supporting this podcast and keeping this going. I hope you found something in this podcast that helped you, or started you thinking about something at least. And perhaps if you want to have a conversation sometime, send me an email, and we can talk. Happy to talk about things. I really do want to help. So thank you all for listening to the MR Runningpains podcast. Again, my name is Aaron Saft, and I'm so honored to be able to continue to do this, and that you took the time to listen. So thank you, my friends. And until next time, keep running.